fence.
Yeah, all right. Let's see what we can do.
That's about guaranteed. Let's see. I'm going to share this thing on Twitter, and then we'll be getting moving. Week 8 for us, Bob, of quarantine shows. Usually we do this in the same studio, and now we are week number 8 without being able to to be around. So, yeah, it's been an interesting little journey for us here. Kind of kicking it old school. We used to, when we started the show, we did it like this, and then as soon as Sherwin started coming over, we were like, okay, well, we kind of have to do it like this now because it was way better. But I guess at least that experience has gotten us here. So,
for sure.
Yeah, let's see. So, normal rundown stuff. Just as a reminder, I will do the intro, and I will probably disappear for about 90 seconds. Folks will be able to hear you. You might be able to hear me. You might not be able to hear me, and you might hear me, and I sound weird. So, if you just kind of grin and bear it through that, then you'll definitely hear me when I bring you on.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. Let's see. We got Jumpy Bob. We got Beast. We got Justin's Racing Network. What's up, fellas? Good to see you hanging out on another Tuesday night in quarantine, doing our thing. You know, I got onto my dad earlier because he's been like, they're going everywhere. They're like, I guess they're just stir crazy or something. And he's been like going to all these Craigslist ads and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, guys, why am I sitting at home, you know, not even leaving except for grocery store if y'all are, you know, all on the road and shaking hands and kissing babies, and Farmer Bob COVID has something new for you, and you got to go lick his doorknob. So that sounded way more. That's not what I meant. I meant literal doorknob. Oh man, so be it. Anyway, so it looks like folks are joining. Looks like folks are hanging out. Bob, you ready to get this thing started?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm ready too. Sherwin, how about you?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'm going to disappear for a few minutes, boys, and we'll see you on the other side. Here we go, recording now. Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 242. It's Tuesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 2020. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. I'm in the PETM podcast studio, all alone in week number 8 of the quarantine. We have a very special guest tonight, along with my co-host, Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. He'll be on in a moment as well. Before we do any of that, y'all know what the deal is. This podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. Go to patreon.com/PETM. Join the Watch Drink Club for as little as $1 a month. Get that free koozie and some stickers. Best part is, as soon as we're all done with all this COVID stuff or in a better situation, we'll be donating every cent, once again, to sponsored drivers. So join the PETM posse today. Be a part of the sport you love. We're looking forward to writing that check this year. This week's show brought to you by our official sponsors at that $5 and up per month level. They are Aaron Bearden, Robert Gepling, or Coleman McClam, Eric Kepner, Ryan Keeper, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brandon Crowd, Kathleen McDonald, Stacey Wright, Brandon Carl, Rika Porter, John Bob Les Miller, Julie Bosley, John Pearson, Eddie Greer III, Younker Motorsports, David Mullins, Patrick Johnson, Brett Morris, Crystal Smoke, Fred Rosado, Chad Knappin, Stacey Coleman, Lisa Janana, Rick Houston, Sarah and Barry, Evan Roller, and Brad Harrison. Woo-hoo-hoo! All right. Y'all know how excited I get when I do the one-breather, man. Sherwin.
Yeah, buddy.
Welcome onto the show. Co-host of the PTM podcast, Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. It was a one-breather, dude. Felt good.
Nice. You're getting good at this.
You know, I know when to think about things. Like, when I hit Brandon Crowd's name, I've got to think for a second. Don't mess this one up. And you got to have a good roll at the beginning, too, because it's Aaron Bearden, Robert Kemlinger, Coleman McClam. It's hard to do that fast. There's a lot of K's, which, you know, isn't exactly a popular letter to start names with. But that said, speaking of, we got a dude with a K in his name on tonight. We want to welcome to the show for the second time, meaning we didn't offend him too much first time, I reckon. Or he's bored to death in quarantine and said, yeah, I'll just, you know, masochistically go back on the show with these guys. NASCAR reporter for Fox Sports, and he's the all-around source of truth for NASCAR news on Twitter at Bob Pockris. It's Bob Pockris. Bob, happy Cinco. What's up, man?
Not too much. I guess you guys wouldn't believe me if I said I forgot that I'd been on your show before, forgot what happened, and therefore have no memory of it, and therefore decided to come on.
Well, you must have been hitting the bottle hard on that one. I don't blame you. You remember last time though? I made those biscuits with the vegan meat in between. We ate the biscuits on the show. So we're the biscuit guys.
I remember.
Yep, and we said they were good, and you said better than a turd. So that's a plus. Bob, what are you drinking on tonight?
Coffee.
Coffee.
I guess I haven't been. I guess I have not. I'm not doing as well as some others on celebrating today. So just been busy and getting ready for, or just continuing to do work. I was watching some iRacing here earlier tonight and getting ready to watch a little more the rest of this week, as well as getting ready to see. Talk to people about NASCAR getting back on the track on May 17th.
Absolutely. Sherwin, we'll get to that. What are you drinking?
Well, I've got a margarita.
Nice. Good call.
And, of course, to match the shirt.
Yeah, Sherwin's got the Dos Equis shirt if you can't see him there. And he's got a Dos Equis on deck. I wouldn't even call that on deck. You've popped the top, so that is definitely a double fisting situation.
Well, they aren't. Yeah, they aren't twist off, so I had to go ahead and pop it.
Yeah. That's fair. I've not indulged in the day, I guess. I've got the normal stuff. Hey, there's a Steady Hand beer company, and they have a Cloudland Hazy IPA. Steady Hand must be near here because Cloudland must be Cloudland Canyon here in Georgia. So
I would assume
it's our little mini Grand Canyon, and when I say mini, I mean mini. But you know how it is. So Bob, how's your quarantine going?
It's going all right. Staying at home, except going to walking to the grocery store once a week, to maybe drugstore once a week or once every other week, and go for a run 3 or 4 times a week. Wear a mask when I do it. So but trying to stay inside as much as possible, and not. And not go out if I don't need to.
Bob, if you're training with a mask on, as soon as you take it off later on, I mean, you're going to be like doing superhero laps, aren't you?
I don't know. I'm keeping it to about 5K a day when I go, so which is a little bit shorter, but just feel like that's enough to kind of stay in shape. So may not feel totally great, but yeah, I think I don't know. I guess you should feel better, although it's not like your times are improving a whole lot with the mask on.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing about 5 steps a day, so 5K a day is definitely an upgrade on that. Sherwin, are you making laps around the house? Have you cut a rut in your rug yet?
Oh yeah. I'm trying to get my 11,000 in a day. I don't always succeed, but I think I did 78,000 steps last week, so that's not bad.
Well done.
I mean, with a margarita and a beer, you have to add a certain number of steps for that.
I should.
You know what you should do?
I try to have one day where I overdo it. I usually have one day where I'm around about 16,000.
That's well done. I'm not getting close to those numbers. Y'all are impressive. You know what, Sherwin? If you take a beer and go bury it about a mile from your house, and just every day, that's got to be, that's the prize. You go and get that beer. Although, on a rainy day, I might be tempted just to drive out and go grab it. But,
right. Well, you know what I should do is I should get in touch with Blake Pierce, because he lives about 3/4 of a mile from me, and just say, hey, do you have a garage fridge? I can go put some beer in, and then I walk over in there and grab one and then walk home, and then I've done a mile and a half.
There you go. That's perfect. Blake Pierce, a old fraternity brother of ours, lives in the old area. Bob, so how's the hair? How's the mane? Have you been able to, have you grown it out for us or what?
Luckily, I got it cut pretty well right before the quarantine hit, so I haven't had it cut yet, but it'll probably need to get cut here pretty soon. The barber did a good job of getting it thinned out before all this, but it's getting a little big as far as Bob's big hair, but I guess just have to wait. I'm scared to cut it myself, so we'll just have to see.
Well, it certainly is good for you that you got a nice thick head of hair as we all start to migrate our way into what might be old age.
The good news is, for guys, and I feel bad for the ladies out there, because the guys, like, you can go after it and try to do your own hair, and if you mess up, just buzz it, number 2 guard, number 1 guard, whatever, and I'm just going to look like this for the next month. And nobody really even cares. But, the ladies, I don't know, you mess up your own hair, like, you've only got so many tries at it before now what are you going to do? So I hope the ladies out there are doing well with their hair as well. Of course, I haven't gotten a haircut. I haven't even shaved my face. So, what I need to do, Sherwin, is go look at or put together a composite week by week from still shots from the show over the last 8 weeks, just to see the beard grow out, because it's not something I do very often. And boy, is it getting in my mouth and all in the way.
It'll do that.
Yeah. And then my hair will once it starts hitting mullet phase, it starts like just a slight curl up at the very ends. You know what I mean? Like, it usually goes down.
Oh, yeah, the little ducktail.
Yeah, the little ducktail.
Good.
So, yeah, I'm tempted, Sherwin. We need to go to our first NASCAR race and shave in something that is, like the stair step on the sides, kind of like Brett did, and the long back. Just go to a race like that, and maybe go as media just for fun.
Yeah, you got it. The shark gills. I'm in.
Yeah, it's perfect. Bob, I feel like, we should have seen you twice by now, maybe 3 times between Atlanta, Talladega, and Darlington, and we've seen you 0 times. I'm lacking on my, Bob handshakes on the year.
Well, sorry about that, but, not much we can do about it, but I think everybody's, missing racing at the track, and but it's and I don't know that there's any choice. So that's you miss everybody, and I think that's gonna be something even when NASCAR gets back to racing without fans. Not only teams and drivers not interacting with fans, but even with themselves. Really, I think everybody's like, well, what's going to be a big difference? And I think just you see a lot of. Yes, the teams are working next to each other, and when they're working, they're focused on that. But, there's still a little bit of cutting up between teams, or some, teams talking to each other as, during breaks and stuff. And I don't think, there won't be any of that, because there won't be really any work being done at the track when they get there. Yeah.
So in this time, and we've got plenty of racing to talk about here in a little bit, obviously, but we got to get past the quarantine questions. What's your biggest binge watch so far?
I was a huge Ally McBeal fan, and so
Okay.
I've got the whole series. Somebody gave it to me as a gift, and I've been watching episodes of that.
Calissa Flockhart. I don't blame you.
Yeah, it was a show that had good music and was quirky and fun. And I listened to a podcast that said that, like, during this time you should just take a little bit of time for something that just kind of gives you joy or makes you smile. And I don't know, that does it for me. So I enjoy watching reruns of that show. I haven't watched it in so long. You remember things, but then you forget a lot of things too.
Yeah. Sherwin, did you watch that back in the day?
I watched a little bit of it, like, after the fact. I spent some time, finishing up college, where I had a lot of downtime in the evenings, where I watched a whole bunch of Friends and Seinfeld episodes that I had never watched. Definitely watched some of Ally. Watched some of oh man, what was the name of that thing?
I watched I was huge into Seinfeld, and watching the new episodes that came out, everything. Never got into Friends though, for whatever reason, and not that I don't think I would like it. I've actually watched a few of them. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine. Just episodic comedy from the '90s that has laugh tracks and all that. Once you get past that,
Sure.
So Bob, yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, maybe Bob's got a strong enough brain to remember this Who's the redhead that's in that Russian spy show? Does that ring a bell? Am I giving enough details? Probably not.
You got me.
No.
Yeah. There was a show where there was like two gay guys and then the funny lady that always was drunk the whole time. I watched a lot of that too back then. Now not so much. There's been a couple that I thought about going back and like redoing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about redoing Sons of Anarchy if I could find that, because it's been about 10 years since that came out. That's a pretty good show.
I will still recommend. I said it last time or maybe 2 times ago. Money Heist. I'm continuing to watch it, which for me, I mean that says a lot. To continue watching something out there, and it's all in Spanish, so it's got the subtitles and whatnot. So it's still good, which is surprising again for me, who typically just gives up on shows within the first 30 minutes to one season. Bob, so I know we talked about it last time, and eating vegetarian. You got us into the veggie sausage patties and stuff. We've been asking everybody who's been on, has there been a dish that you've cooked in quarantine that you're particularly proud of lately?
Yeah, I cooked my own taco salad with some Beyond Meat, which is a vegan meat company. Cut all the string beans and carrots and squash and cook them along with that. Cut up my own avocado and broccoli and made a salad. And then obviously I had some spinach, and so created my own avocado salad. I had actually did all the cutting and all the cooking of it, and was somewhat proud of myself.
Well done. I love it.
Nice.
And I mean, obviously it was really good, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. It got in my belly quickly.
Sherwin, I don't know if I've told you the story, but my mother-in-law is celiac, so she can't do any of the gluten stuff, and so I made. We were going over to their house, and we were all bringing dishes and stuff, and we were assigned dessert. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to figure something out. I tried to make some gluten-free brownies, and I followed some recipe online. And Serena, my wife, was doubled over laughing so hard she couldn't barely breathe, because I pulled them out of the oven, I cut them up, and I'm doing all this stuff delicately, pulling it out, getting the tray out and everything, cut off a little bit of corner, put it in my mouth. Immediately take all the brownies, dump them straight in the garbage, and say, I ain't bringing that nowhere. I ain't showing that to nobody. These suck. And we called them trash brownies. So from now on, or from then on, every time we make something that we just absolutely hate, we call it trash brownies. No, you can't try this. It's trash brownies. So, that's our... That's that. I hadn't. I don't think I had any marquee meals this last week. I'll tell you what. We've been trying to go on like convenience type of stuff, and I can't remember if it was since last week or when it was that we made it. But sous vide some steaks. That was really good. And then throw them on the grill real quick. Otherwise, yeah, just the old normal stuff. Frozen fish bakes up really well and really quickly in about the same amount of time that it takes to make rice. So fish and rice has been kind of a staple for me. Sherwin, anything lately from you?
Well, today I got a little bit adventurous, and I will show a picture to everyone. I made some steak tacos.
Look at that. And that looks like some Bob Pockris freshly sliced avocado on there too.
Oh yeah. You got to have the avocado.
Yeah.
That's key. I bought some beef stew meat, and I butchered it down to some really small pieces and slow cooked it. It's probably the best beef taco I think I've ever had.
Well done.
Just because, it was tender.
You had a margarita and a beer with it.
Well, of course I did.
Yeah.
I mean, that helps, obviously, but got some fresh pico and Obviously, the avocado. You can't see the cheese because I put it on the bottom, but yeah, that's what I did today.
Nice work. That looks awesome. All right, Bob. So let's talk iRacing for a bit. I want to know kind of from your perspective, because we've talked to some different folks, CJ Walliver, and we've texted with some other Fox folks. But from your perspective on the reporter/journalistic side of things, when Fox said we're going to start covering the iRacing stuff, what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was I was interested in it, and I'd watched some of the iRacing stuff before. I don't know that it's, I mean, when I was in college, we were playing some of those, one of those baseball type video games a lot, but I'm not into gaming, so I don't know the strategies. I don't know a lot of the details of it. So I kind of maybe I was like you and the vegan sausage, and that like I'm not really sure if I'm gonna like it, but I might as well try it and see what all the buzz is about. And so I think once you start getting into it, you start kind of learning things about it, and it helps maybe increase your interest in it.
What's been some of your biggest surprises in watching it?
I would say I would say the increase in drivers doing Twitch streams from when you started to now, and maybe when it started there were a couple that were doing it, and now you've got probably a dozen that are doing it, where you can, and some of them will answer questions when they can from fans and stuff. So I think what surprised me the most was the ability to interact with fans. I watched Bubba Wallace play a shooter game, a year ago, yeah. And him talking to fans. It's like, wow, that's kind of neat. But it was hard for me to get into it. But the being able to kind of translate that interaction to racing, I think has been really good.
Yeah. I'll tell you what was the most surprising to me was how far it's come in terms of, I keep talking about this probably every week, but how realistic it looked once you put the Fox announcers and the ticker tape and everything else that's going on. My wife coming by and being like, "Oh, is NASCAR back now?" Nope, it's still fake. See, and she goes, "Oh yeah, sure enough." So it's been that's been impressive to me how it works out, Bob. When or how to put this? What's been your impression of how Fox has handled the broadcast side of things?
Well, I work for Fox, so I think it's great.
Right, I'm giving you a layup here, dude. It's a softball.
But I think it's something that's really tough to broadcast because you're dealing with some people who are really good at it and some people who had never done it before. So you want to kind of treat it like a competition, but it's not really a true. There's just such a diverse amount of experience and talent in that type of competition that that you have to understand that, and yet you also want to have fun, right? And so it's kind of capturing that balance of when to be serious and yet know that this is for fun and that this is an exhibition and all that. I thought I mean, obviously I'm biased. I thought we did a good job.
I think the other surprising thing to me, maybe surprising is not the right word, but the real world implications that have happened, and I think unfortunately they've somewhat been there's a few negative instances, like with Kyle Larson and to a much lesser degree, but with Bubba Wallace and the sponsorship stuff. But then on the flip side, the positive side, the sponsorship stuff that we talked about last week, Sherwin, with the Geico 70 and the Coca-Cola iRacing Pro Invitational Series, and then the what did I see? I saw a tweet or something like that it's just stuff you never see in NASCAR. It's a whole different way of thinking where, somebody asks, I think it was Harvick. Yeah, it was Harvick. They asked, hey, what happened there? And he goes, oh, man, that was totally an internet connection issue. And you're like, that's so weird hearing a post-race, tear down with a guy. Okay, well, what went on in this race? Well, we had a good car, but the internet was bad. Like, is that? I wonder if that's an indication of the future of NASCAR in 50 years. That the car was really good, they brought it well, but our internet connection sucked. What do you think, Bob?
Well, let me tell you, if there were millions of dollars on the line, they would have everything wired and several fail-safe plans for that, I would think. Yeah. So but that and I think that's. I mean, that's part of the tough part, too, about iRacing is that, hey, rules changed. Oh, man, there's a glitch. They can't invert the top 10. Well, we're not going to wait because we want to get this show on the road, so we're just going to do it. And I know that frustrated some people, but you got to remember that this was an exhibition. There was no purse. It was for fun. But then again, as you said, I want to say it was it Jimmy Johnson or somebody said, once they, after the first time and it's on TV, it becomes a business. And certainly there was a lot of business to be done as far as with sponsors and everything throughout. But it's probably why several drivers were doing Twitch streams, because it was a way for them to get to do streaming with their sponsor logos on the screen.
Yeah. And, I wouldn't say they took it too seriously. Just ask Dominetto with his giraffe costume and underwear and whatnot. So, Sherwin, let's hit up some NASCAR news here. Revised May schedule returning May 17th. We got 7 races in the top 3 touring series in 10 days. 7 races in 10 days. Y'all follow along with me. Darlington, Sunday, May 17th, 400 miles. Tuesday, Xfinity 200 miles. Wednesday, 500 kilometers for Cup, 228 laps at Darlington, all at Darlington. Two races there. The stuff we've been talking about forever. Why don't we run, a Sunday and a Wednesday race? So, hey, let's try it. It's funny to me how we pre-planned the whole Pocono thing as a, 2 Cup race thing. And I mean, it was just this huge thing. Sherwin, who knows what's going to happen at this point, where we're going, what we're doing. But suddenly it's forced upon us that we have to do this. And then, the very next Sunday night Cup race, 600 mile for the Coke 600. Monday night Xfinity race, 300 miles. Tuesday night trucks, 200 miles. And Wednesday night right back with the Cup, 500 kilometers with 208 laps or so. So what an ordeal. Sherwin, what do you think?
Well, I want to echo what Bob said. I know he's got self-interest involved, but we have been singing the praises and lauded Fox for the way that they approached what seemingly would have been an impossible endeavor if you talked about it 2 years ago with covering, an iRacing event. But, yeah, this is cool to me. I think the thing that's coolest to me is that we're going to get, to see what a weeknight race looks like. I think that it's appropriately lengthed, if that is a verb that I can make up. I like that Charlotte is basically hanging their hat on what were the original distances for the races that would run there. And I think it's great that they're considering, what these things will look like if, what if we ran a primetime race? I mean, the number one television show for the last 40 years has been Monday Night Football. I'm not saying NASCAR can reach that height, but it'll be interesting for them to take a peek at that and wonder, okay, well, what do we have all year round that's on Wednesday night? Well, this time of year it would be baseball, potentially soccer. There's no football. Mm-hmm. This is, the nighttime is the right time right now. The weekday is the right way to approach this. And, we said it last week, shake up that Yahtzee jar full of die and figure out, like, okay, how creative can you possibly get? What is the most creative we can get? I wish it was easier for Charlotte to switch over to the road course. I know that is a huge endeavor.
Yeah.
It would be cool for that Wednesday night race to be on the Roval under the lights, but we know why they can't do that. And we're still going to get our Roval come October or early November or whenever it is they're going to do it. I think the things that are still sort of in the, up in the atmosphere to figure out is, okay, well, if Charlotte gets 3 races this year and Darlington gets 2, then who's going to miss out?
Mm-hmm. Bob, what were your first, initial thoughts when the new schedule came out?
Well, my first thoughts, and you knew it was coming, is the fact that they're ring raced with that run without fans. Yeah. And it makes me think of, meet so many fans at these racetracks. I have a Twitter follower named Sarah, and she's always camping, somewhere in Charlotte. And so you feel bad for people like her who go to races at a racetrack every year and goes to every race there, and to know that they're not going to be able to be there, stinks. Just frankly, it stinks. And so that's, first off, that's frustrating, right? But I also know that for the foundation, the economic foundation of the sport means that they have to race, and they have to get races in, because TV doesn't pay the tracks if they don't race. TV doesn't pay NASCAR to pay the part of the purse to the teams if they don't race, and sponsors wouldn't pay the teams if they don't race. So, so when you look at it that way, it makes it, okay, yeah, they've got to race, and they haven't raced in 2 months, so they've got to get some races, get some cash flow in, and the best way to do that is to have a bunch of races in a short period of time. Would it be great to have had a Roval race? Yes, but even if they could change the track to the Roval, the teams, remember, they had been shut down since early March, and they weren't expecting their first road course race to be till mid-June, and there's no road course cars ready, and there's no way that they would have them ready by if they're racing May 17th and 3 times before what would it be, May 27th, to have a road course car ready. So I know people want that, and I understand it, but the teams would not have been able to do that. This works because the teams were ready to go to Atlanta, Homestead, and Texas. And so, especially with no practice, there's no backup cars needed. And they virtually had 4 to 6 cars already ready that will now be able to be used for these 4 races.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And, that was a pie in the sky sort of perspective on what I'd like to see. But, the main thing we want to see, I think everybody wants to see, is them to get back, for these teams to get made whole with their budgets. And, of course, selfishly as fans, we want to see racing. I want real cars making a whole lot of noise. And, the fact that no fans can be there at all will be weird. But think of all those Monday and sometimes weirdly Tuesdays after rain events where, if there was 10,000 people in the stands for a cup race, you just were happy that they were there and got a chance to do it. It won't be a lot different than that. And, hell, if you think about that Atlanta race where Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon were chasing each other for 20 laps at Atlanta, I think that was like on a Tuesday afternoon. That was a damn good race.
Yeah. Bob, what's the logistics look like for you, for example? Or if you're going to say something else, go for it.
Well, first off, I was just going to say that, it is, we're talking about doing a midweek race, and I think it is great that NASCAR is doing midweek races. It's been pretty frustrating that they haven't really, it's been, a track that has 1 or 2 races a year didn't want to have a midweek race because they were worried about attendance and camping, right? And so they were worried about losing a lot of money. And NASCAR apparently wasn't willing to step up to the plate and say, well, if you lose a certain amount of money, we'll make it up to you. Or it could have been done. And unfortunately, it took a pandemic to finally push people to finally do it. So, but I also wouldn't. Look, there are going to be a lot of people at home, a lot of people tuning in, maybe out of curiosity. So, even if it does great, which I certainly hope it does, I wouldn't say, then every midweek race is going to do great. I think time will tell how well those midweek races do. Yes, about logistics, I'm just not really, Fox is still working on a lot of its plans, and since they're all fluid, I really can't get into that.
10-4.
Yeah.
Midweek racing, for me, it feels like what racing at the dirt track is, Eldora, where, if we can still make it a special thing going forward, then, I think it could still be special and bring a lot of eyeballs to the television, bring a lot of butts in the stands if we're bringing that. It's kind of like, we saturate the market with some stuff like with night races or something. The first night race, or if it's the only night race of the season, you're going to pack the stands. If you start doing night races every other day, which we kind of did there for a little bit, it's less of a novelty. So I think the novelty factor of, that midweek racing, like Sherwin said, right now, what do you have to compete with? Nothing. Maybe some baseball, but shoot, if the Braves are on for the umpteenth time again, or there's the Wednesday night NASCAR race that only happens once a year, and I've got one TV, you know which one I'm turning to.
Yeah, and I think this will be a good look at that. I think a summer series where you have maybe four Wednesday night races, would be great. And I think, and then the question is, do you do it in a way where maybe have a separate point system, and the winner of those four series, if they don't have a win, do they get into the playoffs? I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do to potentially, create interest and have good events. I think the toughest part is where do you do those, right? Like you would, where you're all in Atlanta, right? So
yes,
could you have a Wednesday night race? Well, you could, but how many people are going to travel from downtown Atlanta to Hampton, Georgia on a Wednesday night? Can it work? And I think that's the biggest struggle, is that these tracks are not in. It's not like a football stadium that's in the middle of a downtown that people would just go to after work and hang out, in town and go. This still would take people probably taking a day off of work, either that day or the day after.
Yeah,
I agree with you 100% on that, Bob. And I'm going to piggyback on what Rusty said about saturation, because there's two different types of saturation conversations that matter. One is Rusty has been the best person that I've heard to date talk about how leave people wanting more. And so you don't want to overdo it in that respect. And the other thing is what you just mentioned, Bob, is where do we do these things? We know Martinsville has lights. Richmond has lights. Richmond is actually in a downtown area. That's a great candidate for a weekday race. Martinsville is less than 2 hours from Charlotte. And on the good side of saturation, obviously the Carolinas and Virginia and East Tennessee are highly saturated fan areas of the country for this sport. And those are candidates for weekday races. And that's something to be looked at. But, it's going to have to be in the summer, to Bob's point about, are people going to take days off? Are they still going to camp? There is a revenue aspect to this when we go forward, and maybe we don't have to fight this pandemic like we're fighting right now. But we still need people to be able to be there. And so they're going to have to be very selective on which tracks they choose.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and you could also, like, let's say you do Cup on a Thursday night. Could you do then Truck on Friday night and Xfinity on Saturday? Or if you do Cup on a Monday night, do you do Trucks on Trucks on Saturday and Xfinity on Sunday? Like, you can look and see if you can still kind of make a week or a weekend of it. But just that the Cup race isn't necessarily the one that's either last or on Sunday.
Sherwin, me and you have been to the track where folks have said to us, "Yeah, this is my only vacation of the year," and I took however many days, whether it's 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, whatever it is, and so this is a big commitment for obviously for a lot of folks. And I totally agree. I was going to bring up the same thing that Bob brought up, except even sprinkled in with, what if you did Cup on Wednesday, Truck on Thursday, Xfinity on Friday, and then Cup on Saturday, just like kind of what we're doing right now. This is a good test run for what this could look like in the future.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the tracks that have two races are going to strongly consider this type of program. The order of operations doesn't really matter, and they'll have to do their own research on whether or not, it's Cup Trucks Xfinity Cup or some other variation of the way that goes. But this is the time to try it. All right, we got weird times. Try something new, see if it sticks to the wall. But to Bob's point, probably about 10 minutes ago, we got to be really careful in understanding what the numbers were actually going to mean in terms of attendance and television audience, because right now, as it appears, at least for the first week, NASCAR is going to have no competition for live sports on television outside of wrestling and UFC. So we do need to temper expectations. We can't make bold predictions about what these things are going to do, because that's one of the ways that NASCAR got themselves in trouble with giving 2 dates all over the country and taking them away from traditional tracks, like with Darlington and Loudon, giving them to California and Kansas, and bringing Kentucky in the fold. We have to be careful that the data actually means something, because right now, at least for the first 2 or 3 weeks, it probably isn't going to mean anything. It's not going to mean anything more than we're the only ones doing it, and we have a captive audience.
Yeah. Fellas, I'll tell you, I thought I had this novel thought that we're going to Darlington twice, we're going to Charlotte twice, and, of course, NASCAR hasn't decided or hasn't announced or decided, whatever it is, what the remainder or the next month looks like after that. But it seems like something in the Southeast that you can get to pretty quick from either Charlotte or from any of the racetracks that we've talked about would be, high up on the list. And I thought, strategy-wise, I wonder if there are teams or drivers that this, would be especially positive for or negative for, and who could kind of take advantage of this. And I thought I had a novel thought there, and then I scrolled through Bob's Twitter feed, and he's already written an article on it. But so, Bob, you were ahead of me on that one. But what's the thoughts there for you on who could take advantage of this?
Well, I mean, you're talking about especially the first race at Darlington, the first race at Charlotte, a race where there's no tire rubber on the track, and track conditions are going to change immensely, right? And so no practice, and then you're going to have to adjust the car significantly. So I think that that helps the teams, helps the drivers who've had crew chiefs for a long time. It helps those teams that are really good off the truck. And I think it helps those who've already won races and maybe can take some bigger swings at things. So when I look at it, I say Kurt Busch, just because of his knowledge with the car, Kyle Busch, and Kevin Harvick are so strong and have great lengthy relationships with their crew chiefs. I look at Martin Truex Jr. because that team has been maybe the best off the truck. And I look at Joey Logano already having 2 wins, and Paul Wolf. I think that they really could do some swinging for the fences.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Kurt Busch. I was going to say this whole get in the car and go hauling ass off into turn 1, having no track time, and have to lay down a fast lap in qualifying to get yourself on the grid. I'm putting Kurt Busch right up there with anybody as being fearless and understanding what that car may or may not do. I think Wheelman.
I think Bob also brings up a great point that I hadn't really thought about. This isn't like, this isn't Daytona 500 that we're starting over with. We have several races already, and don't forget, Joey Logano and Paul Wolf have won 2 races already, and nothing to lose, and kind of like almost practice time for the next race too. Nobody should think of this as practice, but it's something that they could find some speed. They could figure out what's wrong on Wednesday and go back on Sunday and boom, make a splash. So I think that's a really good point. Don't forget, we're in the middle of a season right now. Early middle, but middle.
Yeah. Well, and think about of the 3 tracks we're going to go to in the next 3 weeks, 2 of them, maybe even 3 of them, actually there's 4 tracks, sorry, arguably are some of the most technical racetracks that we go to that aren't road courses. Mm-hmm. Think about Darlington, Bristol, and Atlanta. Like, if you miss it at any of those places, you're gone. Like, you're out of the picture.
Yeah. So, we'll close it out with that. Bob, or I shouldn't say close out the podcast, but close out the topic there. Bob, I mentioned at the top of the show that when I was introducing you, NASCAR reporter for Fox Sports, and all-around source of truth for NASCAR news. There's a lot of I'll see stuff on Twitter and or on Reddit or somewhere else, and somebody will have some zany topic or idea or something, and the response, like in the first top 3 responses or so, will always be, well, Bob Pockris hasn't said it, so it either isn't true or isn't announced or whatever. So hold your horses. Bob Pockris hasn't said anything yet. Do you feel, or have you seen that stuff? Number one, and number two, do you feel any sort of either pride or responsibility around that?
Well, I see it, and I'd like to say I believe it, but you're never supposed to believe everything you see on the internet, right? So
yeah, I've heard that's Abe Lincoln quote.
I mean, I think you take responsibility no matter whether some people were saying that or not. Like, you want to be accurate, and it's I often say this, and it's we all of us reporters are working really hard, and there are a lot of good reporters out there. And, sometimes it just depends on who you're willing to believe, and or who you are willing to put your trust in to report something. And everybody has different standards, and companies have different standards. So, so that's, why sometimes you may see, and sometimes people are just good and get something that you don't know about. And sometimes people are just able to confirm with a little bit more of confidence. And then other times there's just stuff that's out there that you just haven't felt comfortable reporting yet. And then it turns out not to be true, right? I think the toughest thing in NASCAR is that we often hear things and they may already be a week old. And the biggest question is, what has it changed in that last week since I've heard it, or since it's got to me?
Well, on the chat wall, Matthew Todd says Mr. Pockris is the closest thing to a Jedi Knight as we'll ever have in NASCAR journalism. So that's got to be one of the highest praises that there is. And Roger says Bob is also the guy who knows who has lights. So with that, I have a question for you, and maybe it is that question, but is there a question that you get on Twitter all the time that you're tired of answering?
Well, I never get tired of answering it, but I think I've said this on some other shows, is that it always amazes me if somebody asks, when is the competition caution? And I guess there is some fantasy implications or some sort of calculations that people make when there is a competition caution. But the night before it's raining, hey, is there going to be a competition caution tomorrow? And it's like, man, usually we don't find out till 2 or 3 or 4 hours before a race. But it always makes me wonder, like, were you planning on pit strategy for somebody, or are you trying to time your snacks? What makes you want to know, when the competition caution is before you wake up the next morning?
I'll give folks credit in this way. It means they're interested in the sport. It means they're interested in the strategies and everything going on. So I think when we stop hearing, when is the competition caution, then that means people don't care anymore. And so I'm okay with that one, even though apparently it might grind at Bob a little bit.
It just makes me laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, you're already wondering. I say, get some sleep. We'll tell you in the morning. That's all good.
Yeah, don't lose any sleep over this. I like it on a Saturday evening. Bob,
matters even less now because of the segmented racing, or stages. Sorry, we're supposed to call them stages now, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, they want to. Actually, it's Goodyear that wants to check tires. That's what it amounts to. Goodyear asks for that.
Right. So, Bob, it seems like, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you've had a lot more screen time lately. being interviewed on TV and stuff. I keep asking these two-part questions. So, A, do you feel the same? And two, do you have you made any changes, or have you I don't know, kind of had some introspective about, okay, well, I got to do this now, or maybe I got to cut my hair or something like that?
Well, I mean, I think look, there, I certainly am. We talked earlier in the show about me running, right? It's you want to try to looks are important when it comes to TV. So I don't feel as bad going running at 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning. I'm listening to probably a podcast, one of the several podcasts I listen to that talk about NASCAR, and it's kind of like work, right? I can justify it better. So I think that's kind of what I do, and I try to do my best when it comes to the TV stuff, and continue to work at it. And obviously, the more reps you get, the better.
Yeah. So, Bob, would you care to share with the crowd that may be watching and might listen later what the NASCAR podcasts that you listen to are?
I'll listen to I listen to Door Bumper Clear, Dale Jr. I'll listen to Positive Regression that my buddy Alan Cavana and David Smith do. I'll listen to Sunday Money. I'll listen to Glass Case. I'll listen to you guys some. And then some other, I listen to Kelly Crandall's podcast, the Racing Writers podcast. Those are among them. And then I have some other podcasts I listen to. I listen to there's a podcast I think it's called The Next Big Idea. That's not a NASCAR podcast, but it's just a good kind of makes you think type podcast. And I'll listen to some sports media centric podcasts.
Sure, write that down, Rusty. The Next Idea,
dude. Next Big Idea.
Next Idea.
It's funny.
I listen to all of them at double speed on my iPhone.
Oh, yes. You're a double.
That's key.
I'm a double speed. Yeah, double speed guy.
So we took Nate Ryan's advice probably 4 or 5 years ago around using 1.5x. Some people just talk way too fast. Now for us, being a couple Southern gents,
I listen to Nate's podcast too. I shouldn't have left that one out.
You could probably listen to ours at double speed most of the time and still pick it all up. Some people talk so damn fast that even 1.5x, I'm like, whew.
Yeah.
Wonder what they just said.
Yeah. As I say, we're Southern slow here. We like to, just sit on the front porch, drink our sweet tea. Don't move too fast. You'll start sweating. It's hot down here, fellas. So
yeah, Walt Tripp's podcast might be a 1.5 podcast.
Yeah. No, I wrote that down
pretty quick.
I wrote that down,
Kentucky accent. Sorry, Rusty.
No, it's cool. I wrote that down. Next Big Idea podcast, because I'm totally into those, like heady, introspective type of thing, type of podcasts. I know this sounds crazy, but I can't wait to get back to work, because that's when I listen to my podcast, is on the way, to and from work. And now my way to and from work is, the other wall right there. So, I'm looking forward to getting back into that. Bob, here's one. I think we've asked people before what their biggest failed or worst interview was. What was your favorite interview? What's somebody you've interviewed besides PTM podcasts, of course? But what's been your favorite interview that you had that you walked away and you went, that was damn good, and sort of pat yourself on the back with?
That's a great question. I'm trying to think of something somewhat recent, and I would say, I don't know if I would use the term great, but I did a story a few years back on Brian Clausen, the year after he died, and talking to his dad and his fiance at the time, and I don't know whether I classify those as great interviews, but it was really enlightening to hear their perspectives and their memories and that and that kind of thing. And so I don't know whether I felt great after those, but I felt satisfied, if that makes some sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You're your own worst critic, Bob.
Yeah. That was, I think he was racing like midgets or something, right? And ended up, upside down or something like that. So yeah, that's, I like that answer because, it's a hard hitting one. It's one that, like you said, you can't celebrate. You can't be like super proud and pat yourself on the back, but you're, I like the word you use, satisfied. I'm extra satisfied with that type of thing. Let's see. So next week, or this weekend, I should say, we're on to our final iRacing Pro Invitational Series event at North Wilkesboro Speedway. I just got speed bumps. I just got goosebumps. We'll call them speed bumps. I just got goosebumps thinking about racing at North Wilkesboro. Here comes a two-part question, Bob. One is around how cool is it to go there? And two, just in the general view, how do you think history will see this racing season and the iRacing stuff that has gone on, to fill the gap?
I think it's cool that bringing back a track that a lot of people, I never went there. I've only watched races on TV from there. So I think it's cool to bring back a track that a lot of people don't know a lot about, and also one that is new for iRacing, so nobody has any experience on it. So I think it'll be cool to watch. How will people look back on this season? I don't know yet. I think there's still a lot of the season to be developed. I think they'll look back, and I guess there'll be, what comes out of this season. Will midweek races be more prevalent? Will double headers be more prevalent? Will more people use iRacing to prepare? I think, we probably won't know the impact of this season or what people will look back on until 4 or 5 years down the road. And or it could be, that you look back and you'll say, gosh, they did these races with no practice and qualifying, and it was great, or it stunk, or whatever. And you'll be like, you'll point to it and say, hey, when people bring it up, like, hey, maybe we should do it this way. You'd be like, well, not back in 2020 when they tried this, it didn't work. So I think you'll have, in general, as I said, I think it kind of just remains to be seen how people will look back on it. And, and I think they'll look back on the season as a whole, and sure they'll be like, well, this guy, the playoffs were different because of this, or maybe these people made the playoffs because they were really good in this short stretch, or something like that. But I think not every season has something like this, but you're gonna just do the best. NASCAR's gonna do the best it can to get this season in and season complete with all the races in, so that teams can move forward.
Yeah, I feel like we're in the middle of one of those historic events that we talk about with, like, the what was it, 79 Daytona 500, or the was it the 69 Talladega, where everybody said, I'm out of here. and at the same time, people will talk about the 2020 NASCAR season as, what on earth? They did what they could to get a season in. So I'm very interested in how that'll look, going forward. Sherwin?
Whew. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. I think people are going to look back on this and they're going to say one of two things. They're going to say either NASCAR got it right or NASCAR didn't. And of course, we all hope they got it right. And I hope that one of the things that we learn from this whole process is that NASCAR will start to realize that having less competition during the time periods that they're going to run races is probably a good idea, and that double headers and weekday races are fun, especially during the summer when people may be able to take weekdays off to go to races, in hopes that, at least from my perspective, this is a selfish desire, that we would finish the season much sooner before the NFL really and college football really start to hog the weekends with games that are going to matter for implications for their particular playoff process and championship process. I hope that's what we learn from this is, if we run a few, like Bob said, we run 4 Wednesday races and maybe do a couple double headers. Maybe we can shrink the season by 5 or 6 weeks and, and be more relevant in September and early to mid-October and not have to worry so much about cranking it all the way into Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I like that. I like that thought. And with North Wilkesboro, I sort of skipped that part of the question, but man, what a cool way to end the season. Put the cherry on top of what we're doing here, and the here's something to help satiate or whatever. I really hope that would be that it's going to be well watched and attended, quote unquote, and people really enjoy it. So, and obviously Dale Jr. having a lot to do with all that. That's really cool. So last main topic here for the show, I don't want to talk about at all because plenty of people have, and I think we had at one point about Kyle Larson and the situation he ended up in. But interestingly, it sounds like he's got 2 houses for sale now in Mooresville, North Carolina. He hasn't applied for any reinstatement in NASCAR. He will be in the dirt racing in the Woo Series here shortly. And so, Bob, from your perspective, is this a pretty heavy indication he's jumping ship and that's where he's going to be from now on? What do you think?
I don't know about that. It's an indication that he got fired from a very well-paying job.
Well, there's that.
And I wouldn't take this as him saying, "Well, I'm going to just go World of Outlaws racing." I think he has his own team in that series. So he has the ability to get an equipment now, and good equipment, right? And so I think it's a way for him to get back in, but I wouldn't read anything into it that oh my gosh, he's totally out of NASCAR, will never be back. I just think that right now that is apparently he feels ready to go back racing, and that's probably the easiest avenue for him to go.
Yeah, and for those that didn't already see, World of Outlaws had asked Larson to complete a certain process of sensitivity training before they would allow him to return to competition in that series, which Kyle Larson has already completed, and he is eligible to return should he want to. And a lot of these World of Outlaw events are kind of almost like invitationals, Knoxville being one of them, and I think they certainly would want to invite him and be the first series to have him back and say, look, we're starting the rehabilitation process. There have obviously been some misgivings that will take a long time for people to forgive. Some people will never forgive. But I believe that we will see Larson in a Cup car again. I don't think it will be in 2020. It may not even be in 2021.
Well, you heard it from the source of truth from NASCAR, and no offense, Sherwin, but don't read too much into that. I love hearing the perspective. Bob, let's close it out with this. We're going to do some picks for this North Wilkesboro Speedway final iRacing Pro Invitational Series. I just used a lot of words there. Hopefully that all made sense. But let's talk about you. Who you got for this race in the iRacing Series?
I have Garrett Smithley.
Garrett Smithley, and I've written it down. My man. He's been an absolute beast at this stuff, and no reason that he shouldn't. Sherwin, last week I picked Harvick, who finished 18th with those internet issues. Last week you picked Chase, who did not actually even run the race. He had a family obligation. So
I figured that out way too late.
It's really funny how these things end up. You'll never hear that in the actual Cup Series, right? Oh, sorry, I had a family obligation. I couldn't make the race. So it's funny how it works out. So with that, Sherwin, we'll give you first pick, and I know who I'm picking, even if you pick him.
I think I know what you're going to do. I don't know. You know what? Given his role in this whole process, I'm going to pick Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Dale Jr. And by the way, for the first time in PETM history, I'm going to allow it. I'm picking Dale Jr.
All right.
Exactly who I wanted to pick for this thing. Like you said, his role in this whole process, all the investment he has, not just money-wise or whatever, but just personal investment. This is his baby doing this thing. So I think it's very fitting to do that. Bob, let's close you out. Tell the folks where they can find you. What's coming up next?
They can find me in several places. On Twitter at Bob Pockris, same handle for Instagram. On Facebook at Bob Pockris Fan, and then also on the FoxSports.com page. Sometimes those stories can be hard to find, so you can always find links to stories and videos at the on my Facebook page or on the NASCAR on Fox Facebook page, as well as the NASCAR on Fox YouTube channel.
Bob,
all sorts of Fox places.
We appreciate you being on the show. We love you to death. We can't wait to see you. And whether it's a handshake or a fist bump or a virtual hand wave or whatever it is, we can't wait to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thanks,
take care, Bob. See ya. Sherwin, let's close this thing out. We're already an hour plus in. We appreciate Bob's time, as always. Tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Pregame Engineer on the Twitter, at Andrew L. Sherwin on the Instagram.
All right, and we're going to bring in Sydney to close this thing out. Y'all, you know where to find us. PETMpodcast.com, at PETM Podcast. On the Twitter handle, I'm Tailgate Mayor, at Tailgate Mayor, Rusty Wallace. It has been an absolute joy having y'all on the show tonight, hanging out with us and, doing our thing for another week. We've got one more week of iRacing here at coming up at North Wilkesboro Speedway. It's going to be a blast. Hope y'all tune in for that. We'll definitely be talking about it next week. And we'll be talking about coming back to the NASCAR season and, what that means and what's going on. So can't wait to talk to y'all, and we will see y'all next week. And that's a wrap.
Boom. Skew.
Woo. Good times. I'm going to get this thing all settled out. Hopefully that works out. But Bob Pockris, ladies and gentlemen, that was an absolute blast having him on. And, talking NASCAR, having fun. So we got through just about the whole show sheet, too, which is rare for us.
Yeah, I saw you bouncing around a little bit, but we pretty much got it all.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those the guest starts bringing up a topic that you're going to talk about later. So, all right, might as well just talk about that then. You
just pull it forward.
Yep. Don't care.
No reason to shut them down. Just let them roll. That's the way we do.
Yep. Let's see. I'm getting all the techno babble stuff done here. There's that. So now we're exporting the...
Anybody's sticking around for NASCAR After Dark?
That's right. We got PETM After Dark, ladies and gentlemen. Hang out with us. What's going on? What are y'all doing? What y'all drinking?
I'm trying to roll back through here. I know I saw on the Twitter that Sarah Scott had asked for a shout-out, and we didn't quite get to it, but Bob did. He did mention her as a...
Oh, yeah.
Often
cool.
traveler to Charlotte.
That's awesome. Yeah, cool. Sarah, what's up?
Sarah Skadoodle.
Skadoodle.
Is where you can find her on the Twitters.
Digging it. Dude, this Steady Hand
She's been a follower for a while.
Awesome. This Steady Hand beer company's pretty darn good with this Cloudland Hazy IPA. I'm digging it.
I want to say I've had something from them, but I would have never been able to pinpoint them to Cloudland. Cloudland is actually a cool place. Up in northwest Georgia, we've had a couple of guests from up there, not all that far from Chickamauga.
Me and the old lady got we had a little wild hair and just decided one weekend, let's go to Cloudland Canyon. And, it's a thing. Neither one of us had been there before. So we went up there and, like, it reminded me of being out west. Now, obviously, it's way smaller, but just walking around and, like, the boulders, the canyons, all that stuff, it was like, whoa, are you sure this is Georgia that we're still in right now? Like, we've got those old mountains that have been beaten down by the rain and everything else. And so, it's just kind of rolling hills comparatively. So, yeah, Cloudland Canyon was super cool. I need to get back there.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So here's a fun fact. That is where Lana and I started dating.
Oh, no kidding.
Went on a high school trip up there, and basically an unsupervised trip, so to speak. I mean, we had teachers with us, but, like, they didn't care. I mean, they did and they didn't. I mean, when they when they showed up on Saturday morning and almost every dude was paired off with a girl, like either in the back of a truck or in a bedroom, one of the cabins, they were like, what do you think your parents would say? And I literally told my 9th grade, like, physical science teacher, I don't think they'd give a shit. But yeah, and we drank and partied and had a good old time.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds fun. Yeah, we ended up, what was it? There was this one restaurant that we ended up at, and this, and I'll never forget at this point, because it's like the nice restaurant in near Cloudland Canyon, which means it's half as nice as or a quarter as nice as anywhere you can go around in the city, but it was the nice place, and they had the tablecloth. And they had, like, the glass on top of the tablecloth, but sandwiched in between the glass was, like, a lot of people's business cards or whatever, like, from local places. And my wife had a business card on her, so she thought it'd be funny if she just put hers in. So I think I've still got a picture of her somewhere, of her using one of the knives at this nice restaurant and poking her business card into the table so that it fit in with the scenery there. It's probably still there. There's no telling.
It probably is.
But yeah, here we are on our.
Did I ever tell you about how, the second time we went to Asheville Brewing on our way to Bristol, I went and stuck one of our stickers on the wall inside the bathroom.
Oh yeah, I remember you doing that
tile wall.
Yeah, I remember you doing it.
Yeah, the next year we went back, somebody had peeled it off.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't beer related.
Right. I remember that distinctly. I've told people about that.
Good times.
Yeah, that's funny.
Great oldies. You've been watching this Jordan stuff at all?
No, what's the deal with that? Because I've seen that it's happening.
Dude, it is so good.
No kidding.
Yeah. So you got 6 hours. You're behind 6 hours now.
6 hours.
Well,
I can find 6 hours, I imagine.
Six hours of ESPN with commercials, so you're like, 5.5 hours.
Right.
But no, it legit is good. You can, it's free on ESPN3. And make sure you select the one that says TVMA.
Okay.
Because it'll be the only time you have ever heard the word motherfucker said on ESPN.
That's funny.
It is completely unedited from a language perspective.
Yeah. What's funny is that, imagine Jordan, and plenty of people have talked about this, but imagine him, like, in nowadays, like this, on Twitter. Like if he had a Twitter handle, or if he was doing this and that, or he was more open with the public or whatever, because he had the whole gambling thing that was crazy. He had he had all kinds of mess going on that I don't think people necessarily, like, I didn't know as I was a kid / teenager when he was in his prime, if you will, but I wouldn't have known any of that stuff, but I'd have been all over it if social media existed and he was all part of it. So getting that sort of inside scoop that you didn't get during the whole thing happening, you hear about Wilt Chamberlain and all the women that he's been with, and then, with the stuff that Jordan had going on, it's interesting.
It's very interesting, and it's worth a look. I promise you will not feel like you've wasted your time whenever you get a chance to watch it.
Sounds
especially
like something up my alley.
You and I both we're very similar in age. We both loved basketball growing up. We were teenagers in the 90s, so watching Jordan, and all the success that the Bulls had, we love the Hawks to death, absolutely. Brokenhearted when they traded Dominique. The same way I was brokenhearted when the Falcons decided they couldn't re-sign Deion Sanders. The Bulls became that de facto team that you just wanted to root for. And honestly, Jordan wasn't even my favorite player. Pippen was my favorite player.
Pippen, you're a Pippen guy. I'm
a Pippen guy.
Ever since Jordan dunked from the foul line, and call it whatever you want, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but, he was close enough. That's when I was like, all right, this guy is – I shouldn't say he's legit. Obviously, he was legit by then, but, it's a guy that I want to root for because look at how cool that is.
Yeah, well, I had that poster. Somebody gave it to me for my birthday. It was a horizontal poster of him palming a basketball in one hand and reaching out into the other. And it says Michael Jordan, 6'6", wingspan 6'11" or whatever it was.
Yeah, I know that poster. Yeah,
and he had like a 47-inch vertical. Like he took a regular jump shot and he was 3 feet off the ground.
It's insane. Just he was a spring. How do you?
How when I took a jump shot, if I was 15 inches off the ground, it was the highest I had ever jumped in a jump shot.
Yeah, you were probably overdoing it and pulled a hammy.
Right?
No, I totally
Or didn't
understand.
have enough arm strength once I got up there to actually get the ball all the way to the
hoop. Oh, man. Well, happy Cinco, dude. We didn't do anything so we kind of pushed out our, what do you call it, the Valentine's Day, and celebrated that. Celebrated whatever we, just making dinner like we normally do. We pushed out Easter a little bit, and so I think I'm gonna have to, push out and do Cinco a little later. But yeah, totally intend on being there, doing something. So.
It's one of those ones I always like because I'm not a year-round margaritas guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I like having an excuse. I will tell you this, and I'll send you a picture of the label later. But I bought a bottle of tequila that I'd never heard of before. It was not expensive, and the cashier was like, that's coming off my shelves really fast. And he's like, so I know you're probably making margaritas tonight. He said, but make sure you try it straight before you do that, just so you know what it's like.
Into? Yeah.
Super smooth.
Huh.
And I don't know if I'm becoming one with tequila, where I used to kind of, I'd have one tequila night a year and I'd take a bunch of shots, and then that satisfied me for 364 more days. This stuff is good.
Nice.
It's like $20 a fifth.
Yeah.
I mean, not expensive. I'll just take a picture. I don't even want to try to remember the name of it, but it's really good, really smooth. It's a clear one. It's not a Reposado or an Añejo.
Yeah. We what was I gonna say that about Cinco? Oh, I know what it was. I remember back in the fraternity. So I'm pulling back 20 years now, or 15 at least. Well, more than 15, less than 20. And me and you were roommates, and we had the bottle swap. We always did the Dirty Santa deal at the fraternity, and we had the bottle swap thing. And
the white elephant.
Yeah, and I ended up with a bottle of tequila, and not gonna lie, me and you drank the whole thing that night, and we had ourselves a tequila night, boys.
Oh yeah, we got smashed. I think there's a very funny picture of me like by the DJ table in that blue flannel shirt I had with the cowboy hat. I'm pretty sure that was that night.
Yeah.
Where I'm like giving the woo, like.
That's awesome.
I still have that picture. Like I have a physical copy of that picture.
That's awesome.
Like the paper.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we are up in all the places, Stitcher and Google Play and iTunes and everything. So the episode's up.
Here's something interesting I saw on the YouTube scroll line. B says that he had ditched iTunes, but he's having much success with Google Podcasts.
Huh.
So,
well,
cool. I guess he likes that format better. That's good. Glad you have options.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Always good.
That's interesting because the Apple or podcast thing on the iPhone works pretty darn well for me. So, but hey, however you do it's how you do it. Glad you can consume it one way or another. So, yeah, that's awesome. Folks, we're going to shut her down. Rusty's got to, go take a bio break, as we say at work.
Yeah,
so,
I could use one myself.
Yeah. So thank y'all for joining. We'll talk to y'all next week. It's been a blast. Bob Pockris, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Posse!